Hi friends, my name is Ashley Ariana. Welcome back to my channel. And the 49ers finally made a move that I feel like all us fans can be happy about. They traded their third round pick to the Dallas Cowboys. Boo, Cowboys, but good move, I think, getting the interior defensive lineman Osa Odighizuwa. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. Probably butchering it, but we've been saying all offseason the 49ers need to get younger, they need to get healthier, they need to get faster. In the trenches, they need to get more physical. It's a little frustrating to see them keep going after defensive linemen when they have such holes on the offensive line. But I think in order to give this a fair grade and like a fair analysis, we need to remember that free agency is just one part of the offseason. And most free agents are going to be older because they've been in the league for a while. So the 49ers still have the opportunity to, going into next year, have a younger and more healthy team because they have the entire draft coming up. And at least for right now, it looks like they're absolutely going to need to make some heavy investments and maybe get some starters in that draft. In free agency, a lot of what you're doing is you're getting those the swing tackles, the backup defensive linemen, the backup wide receivers. That's normally in free agency kind of what you're going after, is you're trying to insulate yourself with the veterans, with the 1-year contracts. And the 49ers did do that today. They signed Jake Tondes, extended Jake Tondes, which I actually really like, especially going into next year. We don't know if Kittle will be ready to go right away. I still think that there's a good chance that they go after that tight end in the first round. And I wouldn't be opposed to that because Jake, in my opinion, Tondes is still a number 2. He can fill in, and he did fill in pretty well for Kittle, but he doesn't replace, it's hard to replace an all-pro, on a future Hall of Fame track, which Kittle is. But he's serviceable, but I still think they could add more to that tight end room. But I'm glad that they at least secured their number 2 tight end. They've been looking for that guy for a while. They had Ross Dwelly. They've had a couple tight ends that I feel like they wanted those tight ends to be good pass catchers and good blockers. And they hadn't really found that guy until Jake Tondes, who they got Jake from the Bears. And I remember when the 49ers got Jake, a lot of Bears fans were like, this is a great player, and we're upset that we're losing him. Anyways, I'm glad that the 49ers have locked up Jake for at least, like I said, a number 2, assuming that they, 1, get Kittle back, and 2, probably end up drafting a tight end, whether that tight end is an eventual, Kittle replacement, so a high round draft pick, or lower rounds, and he's just going to be another, like a more of a third string tight end. I'm not sure yet. Kind of, I think, will depend on who's available when they're picking. But they made it so they don't have to act desperate and like trade up with the addition of Jake. They also signed another 1-year contract with Sam Okwuonu. That was a defensive lineman, backup defensive lineman that has been on the team for multiple years now, and they did bring him back. I think it's just the veteran minimum. And you have to get guys like that. There's going to be a lot of like all football teams in the NFL right now are going to sign not big names, but just to their the 93-man roster, or is it 91? The 90-man roster that they end up having before they cut down. You got to have bodies. So a lot of these veterans that they're signing, I don't have a problem with, as long as you're not relying on them. To me, when I say you got to get younger and faster and healthier, what I mean is the players that you're relying on, the ones that you want to go out there and start week after week, the ones that you are hoping and anticipating are going to make an impact on your football team in a major way. Those are the bodies that I want to be younger and faster. And when I'm grading the 49ers offseason, I try to take that into consideration. So getting into Osa I'm just going to say Osa because I know I'm butchering the last name. But like I said, he's 27 years old. The 49ers traded their 3rd round pick. This is not like a top tier player, but he's not bad at all. I don't mind trading the 3rd round pick because the 49ers have multiple 4th round picks this draft. They got, and they also have some other late round 3rd picks because if you guys watch my channel with Tom Jensen from Sports Illustrated, the 49ers also have some comp picks at the end of the 3rd round this year. So they can consolidate some of those picks and have a higher, turn that into their 3rd round pick. They've kind of had for multiple seasons now a ton of comp picks, and we've seen them do that before, or they just end up taking flyers. They're, in my opinion, probably not going to draft a player in the late 3rd round, which is the pick that they gave up, that is as good as this player. If, in my opinion, that makes it a good trade, right? Like, if you're taking a risk on someone, then it's like, okay, you'd rather use that lottery pick in the draft because maybe that guy turns out to be better and he's younger and you have him for cheaper for longer. But if it's like the chances of that draft pick being a hit are so low, if you look back to the 49ers recent 3rd round picks, it's like running backs that have been on 3 other teams by now. they have continued to waste those draft picks. Nick Martin, they got in the 3rd round last year. But I'm thinking about a couple of the running backs that eventually were on the Eagles and then eventually on the Dolphins. I'm not pressed about the 49ers giving up their late 3rd round pick, especially, like I said, since they have the comp pick in the 3rd round and multiple 4th round picks. If the draft is happening, like during the draft, and there's still a player on the board, the 49ers and John Lynch can call around and say, hey, for pick, they just traded the 37th pick in the 3rd round. For pick 22 in the 3rd round, we'll give you 3 or 2 4th round picks, or we'll give you our comp pick and a 4th round pick. And that would be equivalent to to that pick that they wanted. I don't know if I articulated it well, but basically I don't think this is a waste of a resource, especially for a player of this caliber, especially if Nick Bosa can stay healthy. Famous last words, obviously. But what's so good about this player is his pressures. So like I said, he's not a top interior pass rusher, but he does rank 6th overall. Out of all interior pass rushers, he ranks 6th in pressure rate, which means he gets quarterbacks off their spot and he makes them tap dance. And when Nick Bosa is so elite at rushing, like we kind of always talk about, like he's not great at stopping the run, right? Because he's going straight for the quarterback. Well, if you have a big body over here, and by the way, this player also worked with Matt Eberflus in Dallas, and Matt Eberflus is now on the 49ers. So I think that's also, sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, but this is another reason why I like this pick is because you assume that Matt Eberflus not only likes this player for his physical skill set, but just vouched for him mentally as like a good player. Like this guy knows the system. He, can learn well. He takes feedback well. He's coachable. He's respectful, all that. Like we just got Matt Eberflus and then he co-signed this player, which is nice. And we've seen other coaches do that before. Robert Saleh did that with the special teams coordinator, Brian Boyer, who totally turned around the special teams last year. And luckily, the 49ers were able to keep Brian Boyer. But the only reason the 49ers got him was Robert Saleh came over and vouched and said, hey, you need to go get that guy. So Matt Eberflus just did that with this. This guy, we've talked about it before, but Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator, he has coached the wide 9, and he's also coached 3-4. And this player has coached or has executed that system, which is the wide 9, which is also the system that Nick Bosa has done since he's been with the 49ers. What I'm kind of interested in is if the 49ers are going to move off of Bryce Huff, because Bryce Huff has not done great outside of the wide 9. It'll be interesting. I don't know. He didn't do good in Philly when they changed the system. So we'll get to Bryce Huff in a second. More on Osa. So Osa ranks 6th in total pressures, meaning that when Nick Bosa is coming off the edge, beelining for the quarterback here, Osa can be on this side and can block the quarterback from coming this way, or at least scare the quarterback so the quarterback sees Osa coming. And then instead of being able to run from Nick Bosa, do you see what I mean? Now the quarterback's screwed, because if you run this way, you're running towards Nick Bosa, you're going to get sacked. But then you see Nick Bosa and you're like, oh shit, I have to go this way. Well, then this guy can get what we would call cleanup sacks, which is basically because quarterbacks are so scared of Nick Bosa, they'll run right into the opposing interior defensive lineman. Now, we've really struggled to find an opposing D lineman on the other side of Bosa. We saw a flash of that from Drake Jackson. If you remember, one of Drake Jackson's first games before he had his knee injuries, he's another one that's no longer on the team. This is why I'm like not married to the picks, because the 49ers don't draft well. But one of the times that that us fans and probably the 49ers themselves thought that there was promise in Drake Jackson was the game that was similar to that, where Drake Jackson got 3 sacks in one game. And they were all, if you went back and watched them, kind of cleanup sacks because the quarterback kept running away from Nick Bosa. Having a solid, quick, fast, and physical run defender, right? Or sorry, pass rusher, not run defender, pass rusher on this side of Nick Bosa makes each edge more dangerous to run to, and hopefully will increase the amount of sacks that the 49ers get, because they could not sack the quarterback for shit last year. We really obviously saw the decline of that after Nick Bosa went down. He was out for like the entire year and still, I think, had the second most sacks out of anyone on the team, even though he played like not even half the season. So last year, Osa only got 3 sacks. Now, what I'm saying is I'm hypothesizing that Osa is going to do really good with Bosa on the other side. This Osa, when he got his 3 sacks, Micah Parsons, who used to be on the Cowboys, was injured for half the season and then traded. So I think it's a strong possibility that Osa gets more sacks on this team as long as Nick Bosa is there, because I think they'll work in tandem. Think like Justin and Alden. You know what I mean? They kind of worked off of each other. But moving to why I think, like I said, I like him, is 6th rank in total pressures. He is only $16 million on the cap this year, and that's the guaranteed money. And then the next 2 years after that, he's owed $20 million, but it's not guaranteed. So the 49ers could spread it out more. They could move off of him. Like it's a 3-year deal if he works out, right? Because he's young. He's been healthy for his career so far. So if he works out, the 49ers have that flexibility to guarantee some of that money or spread it out over more years. But if, this year happens and they decide, hey, he's not been as effective as we hoped, then they can move off of him after 1 year. And it didn't really make a dent in their overall money. Like $16 million is not a lot at all. It's one of the cheaper pass rushers out of any of the pass rushers that were available. Some physical stats about him. He's not super big. He's 6'2", 280. So he's mostly like speed and quickness. If you're thinking of run defense, this is not your guy. The 49ers are hoping that Michael Williams, who, was supposed to be more of a run defender, and then they're really looking at Alfred Collins and CJ West. Those are the big body guys that they drafted just last year. And we really saw some success. Now, it's only been their rookie year. I'm assuming that the 49ers are at least hoping they're going to be even better this year. But those are going to be your real run defenders. Osa is not going to be a run defender. Similar, though, like to me, that's not necessarily negative. Nick Bosa isn't a run defender. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not his position is to rush the quarterback, is to pressure the quarterback. And what he's done, like I said, not a ton of sacks, but he's had last year and the year before that, so both 2 years in a row, he's had 23 quarterback hits, meaning once again, moving the quarterback off his spot. He didn't necessarily get the quarterback down, but he allowed it so a different teammate of his could get him down because he's hitting the quarterback, or at least making it so the quarterback had to throw the ball out of bounds, had to run to the sideline, had to take the quick dump off pass, because if he didn't, then he would have taken the sack, if that makes sense. So having Osa is shortening the time the opposing quarterback can hold on to the football. It's forcing him to make a quick decision because I have this guy, Osa, coming from this side. I have Bosa coming from this side. Oh shit, I have nowhere to run because Alfred Collins and CJ West are stuffing the middle. Then I have to throw the ball out of bounds. Do that 3 times, and all of a sudden you just went 3 and out. So, like I said, if this was, a very expensive player, if it was a higher draft pick, I wouldn't have loved it. But for what they gave up and how he's actually younger and fits what the 49ers need, I like it. And I especially like it with the other players around him. If Bosa's healthy, if CJ West and Alfred Collins continue on the trajectory that they showed last year, and then if Bryce Huff continues, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Huff under Raheem Morris. I think the 4 on, third downs, it's probably going to be Bosa, Mykel Williams, Huff, and Osa is what I assume the front 4 will be. And then, like I said, you'll have Collins and West coming in when the 49ers anticipate the run. But 23 hits last year, 23 hits the year before. That's 46 quarterback hits in 2 years. If you go back and look at his stats, he's gotten 3 sacks, 3.5 sacks, 5 sacks, and 5 sacks. So he's not huge, for his rookie contract, he didn't get a ton of sacks, but he got some production. And every year that he's been in the league, he's been, at the top of the league in total pressures, which I think the 49ers can deal with as long as Nick Bosa is healthy. And this is another thing that I like is I think a lot of people were anticipating they were going to go get Joey Bosa to fill this role. And Joey Bosa is old and injury prone. Like they needed to fill this hole. So they were going to go in free agency and get someone, and they could have gotten older and more injury prone at this spot. And instead of going and getting Joey Bosa, they got this guy for around the same amount of money. Bosa might have been a little cheaper because of his age and injury, but for around the same amount of money, they get this player that I think is better and at least in the prime of his career versus Joey Bosa, who, is on the other end. So I appreciate that when we've been out here saying like they need to get younger and healthier. It's nice to know whoever, the 49ers brain trust was, whether it's John Lynch, Kyle, whoever signed off on this and not Bosa, not Joey Bosa, I like. Because we've seen the 49ers before. I feel like they like the family ties, okay, this player wants this guy. Like Trent Taylor is like 87 years old, hasn't caught a football in 4 seasons, and every single season the 49ers sign him because he's George Kittle's best friend, So I think a lot of people I've been seeing for the last 2 weeks, 49ers trade rumors for Joey Bosa. I would way rather have Osa than Joey, at least at this stage of their career. I think obviously in his prime, Joey was better, but Joey has not been healthy for many, many seasons. Julie is saying he did have 1 healthy season, but that's the 49ers kryptonite. Go get a guy who's been injured for the last 6 years. He has 1 good, healthy year, and then they pay him, and then he continues with the injuries after that. So we got to learn from isn't that kind of Brandon Aiyuk-esque, right? He had 1 breakout year and they paid him, or even Deebo Samuel, who for his entire career struggled with his weight and with injuries. He had, his stellar year where he was probably the best player in the league. 49ers pay him. And then he was out of shape and injured off and on and like a diva for the rest of his career. You don't pay someone, you don't pay someone just based on one season, especially this late in their career, is my opinion. Nobody is saying Osa is a bad player. The question is the player worth the cost? Well, he's relatively cheap. If you look at pass rushers around the league, he's going to be one of the lower paid pass rushers. And so maybe what you mean by like cost cap space on the books, he's cheaper. Maybe what you mean is he worth the 3rd round pick? I think fans would be happier if this was a 4th round pick. He seems more like a 4th round pick than a 3rd round pick. But I think, like I said, the way the 49ers justified that is they have like 4 4th round picks and a comp pick in the 3rd round. So they basically had 2 3rd round picks with their comp pick. They feel like they can. I know your Golden Niners is making excellent points. His sack rate is not good. It's like 40th in the league. His sack rate is horrendous, but I don't think that that's what they're bringing him in for. I think they're bringing him in for his pressures and they're hoping that he'll get cleanup sacks or that he will allow Bosa to get the opportunity to have cleanup sacks. But I'm not giving this like an A. It's not. They didn't go get. I was going to say they didn't go get Maxx Crosby, but no one did because did you all? I see like hoodwinked. Did you all see that happen with the Raiders and Ravens? It was like announced that Maxx Crosby was going from the Raiders to the Ravens, and he was like in Baltimore on his Instagram, like posting stories of Baltimore, like so happy to be there. He dropped like a 15-minute tribute video to his time with the Raiders and saying goodbye and how much he loved it. And then he failed his physical and now he's back. And then the Ravens, everyone was like, shit, what are the Ravens going to do? Because they obviously saved up all this money, cap space to go get Maxx Crosby and then backed out of it. They went and got the Bengals guy. So they insulated themselves, and now the Raiders are kind of, in a precarious situation because clearly, Maxx Crosby said goodbye. The Raiders made him feel like they didn't want him there. They both said their goodbyes, and now they're like forced to be back together. And also the Raiders spent a shit ton of money in free agency because they thought Maxx Crosby's contract was going to be off the books. So they were like, well, we have all this free space. Pretty interesting. Poor Max, kind of sad. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting, I don't totally understand this, but he had knee surgery in January, and at least what he's putting on his Instagram story and like what is her name? Starts with a D. One of the like reporters, Diana Rossini, they're putting out that like Maxx Crosby is totally on schedule. Like, yes, he failed the physical, but he's like where he should be in his rehab is what Maxx Crosby's side is putting out. It's like, yes, he couldn't play football tomorrow, but no one should have anticipated that he could play football tomorrow because he just had the surgery. What they should be, this is what Maxx Crosby's side is saying. I'm not saying I believe this, but what Maxx Crosby's side is saying is they should be testing him based on like, is he on schedule with his rehab? I don't know. Maybe the Ravens got cold feet. Maybe the images looked worse than they thought. It makes it look like maybe Maxx Crosby isn't where he's saying he is, right? Like his side is saying it's all good. We're on the road to recovery. And I feel like by the Ravens turning it down, it kind of makes it feel like, okay, is something more, pardon my language, but more fucked up in his knee than we know about? Is he not taking his rehab seriously and actually behind on his rehab? Because it shouldn't have been surprising that he didn't pass the physical right now because he's still in recovery. So that makes me feel like there's something more going on, or maybe as like a person, I don't know. I'm hearing Baltimore saw more than the meniscus. Yeah, like maybe, they got him under the x-ray, the CT scans, all that. Maybe more was wrong with that knee than they thought, and decided that they'd rather go with 7 surgeries. Is that true? Holy shit. But yeah, I mean, Maxx Crosby has, at least, so far in his career, up until this injury, been an incredible player. So if the Raiders can keep him with all the additions they made and he can play, I think that's good for the Raiders. I just think it sucks because Maxx Crosby kind of felt like he was, right, like, it feels like as fans of football, we see this like all-star talent, like generational talented player stuck on this horrific team. And it was kind of exciting to be like, oh, he's going to actually go somewhere where his talents can be more appreciated, right? Like, he's never going to win. Has he ever won Defensive Player of the Year or anything? I don't think he would do that with the Raiders because the Raiders themselves are so bad. I think a lot of these like awards and accolades go to players that are on teams that are having success. And it's kind of shitty for a player that's really good, but just on a bad team. I feel like Myles Garrett on the Browns is kind of like that, But it's also confusing because I think Maxx Crosby has like 87 Raider tattoos on him. And he's always been like, I'm forever a Raider. So I was kind of confused when he was on the trade block. I was like, is there something like internal with, I know Tom Brady signed on to the Raiders. Like, I wonder if there's internal conflict with the owners or someone in the front office that has changed, because up until this year, like, the Raiders have been bad forever. And Maxx Crosby has been like, I love the Raiders. I want to stay on the Raiders, even though they've been horrible. It wasn't until the beginning of this offseason that he decided he wanted to go somewhere. So was that because he's starting to get older and he's like, hey, I actually do, want to chase a ring or chase success or, awards in the later half of my career so I can, be in the history books of football? That totally makes sense. Or is it that something in the front office changed and maybe now he was clashing heads? I heard he really wanted to play at the end of the season last year when the Raiders were out of it and they were trying to tank, and that he got mad that they weren't letting him play. And when I originally heard that story, I thought, like, fucking stupid, sorry for the swearing, but my initial thing was like, the Raiders suck. Of course they're trying to tank, way to go on this player for trying to push through and play. But then you find out he has, he had multiple surgeries, and you're like, wait, they were right for making him sit. And if he's still not healthy, maybe they were right that he should have sat earlier and had the surgery earlier. So I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more on Max than we thought, but that's not 49er news. That's just, I feel like, the biggest news that's been happening. I'm also interested in what's going to happen with Brandon Aiyuk. It's officially the new league year started today at 4 p.m., which could be confusing. I think most people think it started on Monday, but that was actually the legal tampering period. Everything didn't have to be official till today at 4 p.m. But I think the thing with the 49ers is when they let go of Brandon Aiyuk, they want to do it with a post-June 1st designation because they save money doing that. And I think their thought also is if he can clear, like, what the rumor is that the 49ers have said he didn't take his rehab seriously and he was never cleared to play football. But then I feel like the 49ers leaking information, why stuff didn't work with Brandon Aiyuk, is he didn't take his rehab seriously and he stopped showing up to meetings and football events, right? But then if you hear Brandon Aiyuk's, his side has leaked stuff, and what his side has been saying is he is healthy and the 49ers weren't letting him play because they wanted to trade him and they didn't want him to get hurt or to lower his value. I don't know which one's true, but if he is healthy, then the 49ers are calling, kind of saying, okay, well, then we're not going to cut you for nothing. If you want to go to Washington, which is what he's wanted to do, since they gave him the new contract, right? That entire offseason, didn't he go on the Pivot or one of those podcasts with Jaden Daniels before Jaden Daniels was even the quarterback at the Commanders with Washington? I think Brandon wants to go there, and maybe what the 49ers are doing is like, they're like, we're not going to do you any favors. We're not going to let you go for nothing. If Washington wants you, go pass a physical and they can trade for you. And I got to admit, I kind of don't blame them. Is it kind of messed up that they're doing that? Like, would it be nice for them just to let him go for nothing? Sure. But he stopped, if he really did stop showing up and just decide he didn't want to contribute, then I'm kind of okay with the 49ers being like, all right, you didn't play nice with us. We don't need to play nice. Like, this is a business at the end of the day. I always advocate the players to try to get as much money as they can when it comes to these contracts and all that, because these football players make a lot of money, but their careers, as we can see, can be very short. And so I think you should get as much money as possible, as soon as possible, because as soon as you're not helping the team, they don't think twice about cutting you. So you shouldn't, try to do them any favors. But at the same time, if, from the 49ers perspective, you walked out on us, we don't need to let you go for free. If you think that team wants you, they need to give us some value for you, because we kept you. I mean, how stupid is it? The 49ers could have gotten like a second round pick, maybe a late first round pick from the Steelers and saved themselves, $50 million or whatever. Like, they have paid Aiyuk a lot of money. They saved some because they were able to avoid some, but they paid him, tons and tons and tons of millions of dollars for him not playing. So I don't know. I hope I'm not being like heartless, because I've seen certain people say, this is messed up with the 49ers. They're kind of holding them hostage. I try to be player friendly, but to me, there's also a point where it's like, this is a business and the 49ers need to put what's best for them first. And right now, their options are cut Aiyuk for nothing and let him sign to another team for nothing, or hold on to him. And during the draft, when Washington, wants maybe it's the 5th round or something, John Lynch or the GM of Washington, they can call each other and go, hey, it's not really worth anything. Give me a 6th round pick for him. Is a 6th round pick going to be anything? Probably not, but it's better than nothing, right? I don't know. That's my hypothesis. Nothing negative is happening to the 49ers by not cutting Aiyuk right now. And the only thing negative that's happening to Aiyuk is that he can't sign to another team unless they trade for him. I don't think it's really hurting either one to just keep it how it is. So I'm only talking about that because some people are they've been asking, is Aiyuk still on the team? Yes, technically, but like John Lynch, Kyle, they have all, the contract is voided. When the new year begins, he will no longer be on the team, whether that means he's a free agent or whether that means he's on a different team. He won't be with the team, but they're in no rush to just let him go choose whatever team for free, is basically where they're at. Okay. So those are the updates that I have so far. What were the other updates? I talked about Jake, talked about Aiyuk, talked about Osa. I said I don't mind the Osa stuff. I guess I talked about Mike Evans with Tom Jensen on Monday, and I don't want this stream to just be like me being overly positive. Because I think the 49ers still need to make tons of moves, but the contract deals came out for Mike Evans, and it's like $16 million guaranteed. It's very cheap. He has incentives where he could make up to $60 million, but that is based on games played, yards, touchdowns. Like, does he reach 1,000 yards? Well, if he reaches 1,000 yards, plays all 17 games, and scores multiple touchdowns, then the 49ers are going to be happy with it, and they don't mind paying him up to $20 million a year. You know what I mean? But right now, so what's kind of confusing to me is that the Bucs, there's reports that it came out, it was not about the money, it was more personal. I think Mike Evans was frustrated with Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense. There was that viral clip from last year where the Bucs offense couldn't get on the field and they kept scoring, but then every time the defense got on, basically Mike Evans is like hitting his helmet and he's screaming, 3rd and 28. And it was basically because 3 games in a row, the Bucs defense gave up crazy 3rd downs to the opposing team. And the Bucs ended up losing on these like really close games where the defense totally folded. Now, what's kind of interesting is the 49ers have also had that problem. So I'm like, if you're trying to get away from that, the Bucs don't necessarily know if the 49ers are the best place to go. I mean, I guess what he would be hoping, and what I'm also hoping as a fan, is that was kind of a one-off thing based on Bosa not being there and based on Fred Warner not being there. because up until those two getting injured, the 49ers were not giving up those third downs, those long third downs at least. But yeah, so Mike Evans, contract details came out. He's going to be significantly cheaper than Juwan Jennings. And I think he's probably going to be just as good as Juwan Jennings. He's obviously a little bit older than Juwan Jennings, but in his prime was significantly better than Juwan Jennings. Now he's not in his prime anymore. He's going to the Hall of Fame. So he was like miles and miles and miles better than Juwan Jennings, a couple of years ago. He's not that player anymore. You're not getting 2023 Mike Evans. But even in 2026, Mike Evans, when he was healthy with the Bucs last year, was a good player. The issue is when he was healthy. What I like about the contract about the trade now that the contract details have came out is that the when he's healthy was taken into consideration with his contract. They didn't guarantee him a ton of money. They put all the money in the incentives. So basically they're saying, hey, if you come to this team and you turn out to be Mike Evans and you give us, multiple healthy games, yards, touchdowns, then we'll pay you what you're worth. If you end up sitting on the bench half the year, you're not going to get all that money. So I like that. Like if I'm only looking at the Mike Evans, don't look at the general wide receiver room. I'm not grading that. Just the Mike Evans move. I'm like, okay, I don't mind that. He's an older player, which I don't love, but he's a good player. And when healthy, he can perform. He's great down the sideline. He doesn't totally go over the middle a lot, which the 49ers usually do. But if you go and you look at his highlights, even from last year, so still older Mike Evans, he can get open. The 49ers had struggled so much getting open against the Seahawks, getting open against the Rams. Like, you have to, win your division in order to do anything in the playoffs. And I think right now the 49ers are third in their division. And Mike Evans, if he's healthy, helps with that. Now, my thing is, if Mike Evans is the only move that they make in their wide receiver room, then when I grade the wide receiver room as a whole going into this year, I'm like, oh shit, panic button, we're in trouble. This is like an F. Because you have Ricky Pearsall, who when healthy is good, but he's not healthy much. And you have Mike Evans, who when healthy can be good, but he's like 87 years old and only played 8 games last year. And I think 2 of those 8 games, he left midway through the thing. Because he had a collarbone, but I think he also had some like hamstring tweaks that bothered him last year. Now, up until last year, similar to the Joey Bosa thing, right? Like Joey Bosa was injured every single year and then totally healthy just last year. Up until last year, Mike Evans has been healthy enough to get 1,000 yards every single season of his career. Last year is kind of when it crumbled. The issue is he's getting older. All of a sudden he has health issues. That's the word. It's like, do you really want to bet that this older player just turns it around? Or is this kind of the sign of the decline? They need to make another move for a wide receiver. I don't think they're going to do that in free agency. And I'm not totally mad about that. Like, I liked the idea of Alec Pierce, but he's also not really an over-the-middle player. And he got a lot of money that I don't know if he's a true number one, and he got paid he got paid big bucks. If they would have gotten him, I would have liked the move, but I'm not super mad that they didn't go get him. And his market obviously wasn't as big as they thought because he stayed with the Colts. So other teams did not want to match the amount of money that he was asking for. What would make me happy is if the 49ers go get, a bigger physical, more of a yak guy, like a Deebo Samuel type, early on in the draft. They need that guy. Because Mike Evans, he's going to, go route. He's not Brandon Aiyuk or what Brandon Aiyuk should have been because he's much older. But in his prime, they played similar. You know what I mean? Like Aiyuk could go over the middle. Mike Evans can go over the middle. But that's not normally where you want them. Normally, you want them on the edge, beating the cornerback, beating the safety, just getting open. Mike Evans has excellent hands, so Brock Purdy can throw jump balls. Go look at some of the throws that Baker Mayfield made to Mike Evans. Some of them Baker can be good. We're in the basket and they were great and he caught them. But if you just throw it in the vicinity, like see where I am in this little, if you throw the ball like right here, it doesn't have to be right here or right here for Mike Evans to catch it. He has a large wingspan and he has solid hands. Like in his career, he does not drop the ball. He catches the ball if you throw it within like 10 yards of him. He's great at tracking the football. Great at tracking it, great at grabbing it, great at holding onto it and falling to the ground. The only issue is, and that's why I'm saying, like, Mike Evans as an individual for very cheap, I don't mind the move. Where I worry is if the 49ers go, we're done at wide receiver. No. You still need the guy that goes over the middle and that can get yak. George Kittle, he's probably not, maybe will be there to start the season, but I don't know if he's going to start every game. He's older. Like, can he break as many tackles as he used to? Christian McCaffrey can break tackles, but they used the shit out of him last year. So is he going to be completely healthy this year? Usually when you look at Christian McCaffrey, he has years of, high usage. And then the next year he kind of has a down year and then he has high usage and then a down year. And it's kind of like this for Christian McCaffrey. I hope he doesn't get injured. I'm not predicting that, but I'm saying, like, when you look at the game plan, this is what I was saying to start the show, right? Like, do you have guys you can rely on to be there week after week after week to start? Usually those guys are younger and don't have an injury history, and they don't have that at wide receiver. So I like, as the individual move, I like Mike Evans because you're not spending a lot of money. You didn't have to give up like any asset. You didn't have to give up assets. You're not spending a lot of money. It's all in incentives. That's great. I give that like a B. You know what I mean? He's no longer an all-star player, but if he's, he can be great when he's on the field. The wide receiver room is struggling because right now your two starting wide receivers, Ricky and Mike Evans, great when they're on the field. Haven't seen them stay on the field in their, never have seen Ricky Pearsall stay on the field in his career. He's, I think, too small of a body to sustain contact and football week after week, especially going over the middle. So you don't have an over the middle guy in Ricky. And like I said, Mike Evans throughout his entire career that he's been an all-pro, never a guy that goes over the middle consistently. That's not he's an X. He likes to run straight. Straight, catch the ball, fall down. You're not getting tons of yards after the catch or anything like that. The pro about Mike Evans is you need to get the ball out quick because pressure's in your face and fucking Brock Purdy doesn't have an offensive line. Mike Evans can get open and he can catch the football. We love that. You need that on your football team, especially if you're losing Juwan Jennings. Who did Brock Purdy consistently go to on third down? Juwan Jennings, who would get open on the sideline, didn't, mostly because opposing defenses didn't really pay him that much attention, but he'd get open, he could catch the football, fall out on the sideline. You got the third down, next play. Mike Evans can be that type of player, but that doesn't fill all the holes for your wide receiver. The Kyle Shanahan offense lives on that over the middle pass. Now, Brock Purdy can throw a lot of interceptions, so throwing a little less over the middle, I'm not totally against, but you need a guy who's capable of that. And I think the 49ers, if I was to predict their move, they are going to try to get that guy in the draft. A guy who is a little bit of a bigger body, who can sustain a little more contact, who got yards after the catch in college, and they think can replicate it in the NFL. That is the position that they're missing for their wide receiver room. So I'd give their wide receiver room at this moment like a C minus maybe, because it's just like you feel like you can't trust it. I mean, if they stay healthy, you're like, okay, it could be like a B. You're still missing something, but it could be good if they stay healthy. But with the history, it's kind of a C right now because you're lacking. But if they add, that Omar Cooper guy who he got yak and went over the middle a ton in college, I think you go into this season, as long as that guy stays healthy. He was healthy in college, but who the fuck knows with the 49ers. But if Kyle likes him and doesn't bench him and actually plays him, that's the problem, right? Like, does Kyle doesn't really play rookies. They're going to need to play the rookie, or they need to go get another wide receiver. My problem with going and getting another wide receiver in free agency is now you really are getting, like, the only wide receivers left are older, injury-prone wide receivers. You already have one of those. It's fine to have one. Let's not make every single, like, let's get one guy that could be healthy and younger. So I hope that Kyle gets over himself and they go and they attack, getting a younger, healthier, bigger body, physical yak wide receiver in the draft. They also really need to fucking fix their offensive line because their shit's going to blow up with their offensive line. That's another thing. That's topic for another stream. I've been talking for like 45 minutes and I got to go eat dinner, but I wanted to give you guys an update since it's officially the new league year. These are the moves that the 49ers have made. I feel like I tried to be reasonable, right? Like I told you the Osa move. I think it's a B plus move. I like it. He's not one of the top guys, but if he can execute his position and Fred Warner and Bosa are there, I think the defense could be good and he's going to be a positive addition. If it's all on him, the 49ers are fucked. I've been swearing a lot in this stream. I don't do that. I got to work on my language. Jesus. Same thing with the wide receiver position. I don't mind the Mike Evans move as long as it's in conjunction with another move. Like, I hope that the 49ers are going into this offseason with a plan to get older free agents to insulate themselves, but planning to go into the draft and draft starters, young guys that they're going to play this year. And that means, Kyle, you might have to adjust your system. You might have to trust a young guy who it takes a little bit. You might have to make your, I think they've said before, like his offense is impossible to learn in one offseason. Dumb it down. Like, why is it this why are you wasting rookie contracts where guys are cheap and waiting until they're 27 and injured before you actually trust them to start them? So that's more of a Kyle thing. But we'll see. I'm not giving the offseason a grade until after the draft. I want to grade it as a whole. And these moves, I'm only grading the individual moves. And I'm trying, at least as a fan, to move with optimism that there's additional moves coming that make it so the negatives, which is age, are outweighed by them going and getting younger players. But yeah. I hope I described those things well. I am going to go because I do have to go to dinner. I'm supposed to be like downtown in 5 minutes, which isn't going to happen because I'm here now. Trade for Garrett Wilson. I wouldn't mind that. But I don't think I think the Jets are locking him up. Patriots took Dobbs, but Dobbs is a guy who's been injury prone and is older and not good. My partner had him. I don't care about these things, but had him on fantasy football and he sucked every week. Everyone was so excited about Romeo Dobbs. He's older and I'm not saying he's bad, but would you rather have Dobbs than Mike Evans? Apparently he got a better contract, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my opinion of Dobbs is wrong. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on Romeo Dobbs. I know he was with the Packers, and then Aaron Rodgers really liked him, so I think he went to the Jets, right? And now apparently he's with the Patriots. The plan is to not let Kyle pick the wide receiver. Hopefully they have someone in the building who can make smart logistical decisions. Is that really the plan? I wouldn't be against it. I think that Kyle should be able to have a say, but not final say. And I think they should leave it to scouts who have been watching football, the entire college season, these players since they were freshmen, lots and lots of years. Kyle himself has admitted he doesn't even watch college football and he usually just watches highlights of the players once the draft starts. So yeah, I think that the scouts who have been watching these guys for years deserve a stronger say than Kyle, who usually overrides everyone and has only watched these guys for 2 months, the Omar Cooper guy, I think it's out of Indiana. He seems interesting, and I think Kyle would actually like him. He's similar to Debo. My only thing is I think he's a smaller body than Debo. And like I said, to go over the middle, you kind of need a bigger body to like sustain. You get a lot more hits in contract. So I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong on the Cooper guy, but maybe I'll ask Tom. We need to look at wide receivers that went over the middle in college and had high yak and maybe that weighed a little more. The 49ers have their light guys. Ricky and Mike Evans are both skinnier. I'm not saying they're skinny, but they're skinny, fast guys. Like that's their skill set. You don't want you want speed, so you don't want all your wide receivers to be like this, but having like one kind of stout physical wide receiver is good. So yeah. Evans did not have a leg injury. It was a collarbone. I think the collarbone is what held him out for like the majority of the games, but I think he did have hamstring tweaks that like made him leave games during the year, but don't quote me. I'm not a Mike Evans Buccaneers expert. Anyways, Dallas Goedert would instantly fit. Yeah, from the Eagles. Is he on the trade block? I'd love him. He'd be better than Jake. He'd be much better than Jake Tundes, but I don't know. He's also, I mean, he's not like old, but he's not in his prime, right? I think he's already on the other end of his second contract. So I don't know if the 49ers want to pay that much money to a guy I think they need to start trying to find the next Kittle, not trying to replace Kittle with another semi-old guy, But maybe I'm wrong about his age. I just feel like he's been in the league for a long time. Be safe, California. Saw the headline. Yeah, everyone be safe. The news has been terribly scary and heartbreaking and awful. I've wanted to make some TikTok videos about that and like politics. You guys know I usually talk about that stuff on here, but I'm going to go to dinner and we'll talk more about that stuff. I read Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It's basically all about institutional racism. It was written in the 1940s. It's been taught. My best friend, who's, by the way, a genius and just submitted her PhD dissertation. She's defending in like 2 weeks 2 weeks. She's doing a defense to get her PhD. But she read Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison in AP English in high school. And then my partner is in a reading group and he just read it. So I read it with them. And his dad was an English teacher and went to Stanford and read it. So we've all been talking about Ralph Ellison. I'm very into like the politics of it all and society. Like someone was kind of asking me like who the villain is, and it's just not that type of story in my opinion. Like to me, that opinion or that question was it just didn't fit with the book, because the book is not villainizing any individual character. It is critiquing society and like critiquing racism and how racism not only totally fucks over Black people, but also really, fucks over white people, because like it makes you a horrible person to be racist. And in order to get ahead, and it talks a lot about also like poverty, like, white, I grew up very, very poor and probably in an environment that you would think, is more what minorities are more used to. But a lot of white people in rural areas live that way. Anyways, I'll talk more about the book a different day. But my takeaway was not that like one person. There was like, not to spoil it, but there's a guy in it. There's two guys, but one guy early on who kind of screws over the narrator. The narrator is screwed over at like every stage of his career due to his race mostly. But early on, there's one that's like particularly heartbreaking because the narrator is still like, it takes course over the narrator's life. And this one, it happens early on when the narrator is still very like youthful and kind of ignorant to society, like how mean and cruel society can be, especially to Black people. And the narrator is he thinks he can be the best, he's going to prove him wrong and he can be the best and do the best. And he kind of throughout his life, no matter how good he is and how talented he is and how smart he is, he's kind of like fucked over because of society and race and institutional racism. And there is like one guy early on that you think, because they have the same skin color and he kind of comes from a similar background, you think like, oh, that guy would want to help him. And he screws him over. And you're like, it's super heartbreaking because it happens early on. And the narrator is so thrown off guard by this happening. And it really makes his life spiral. and take a ton of different turns and sends him to New York. And so at the time, like when you're reading it, you're like, I hate this guy, not the narrator, but the guy that screws him over. You're like, I hate him. He's evil. But as the narrator goes through life and, situations continue to screw him over, you kind of start to get sympathy for the original bad guy, because you start to see that any person, like you could take that particular bad guy out and insert any other person in that scenario, and they would probably also have screwed over the narrator, because there was like, they are acting out of fear and out of like desperation to like uplift themselves out of racism and uplift themselves out of poverty. And so, yes, they are being evil, but it's like the circumstances made them act evil. And obviously that's not an excuse. Like, tons of people come from bad circumstances and don't act terrible, but it gives you like more empathy for it. Like it's not justification, but it makes you think, okay, like why are these people acting this way? And I don't know, I'm a psych major, so I'm always interested in that, right? Like my whole study was human behavior. Why do people act the way they act, whether it's good or bad? I believe, I like to think like 99% of humans have inherent goodness in them, but I also think humans are incredibly flawed. I know I act in ways that are bad sometimes. I know people I love have acted in ways that are bad sometimes. And I know that people I hate have acted in good ways. And I think like, it's like, okay, well, what about you has made up why you make these decisions? And I think a lot of like people who act out of either ego or, anyways, it's hard to get into it without spoiling it. But to me, the guy who originally comes off as the bad guy, like any good villain story, right? Like I feel like, isn't Hercules, who's the guy who's like down under? Let me see. Who's that Hercules? He's like blue. The guy that's Hercules. Sorry, this is like not Hercules Disney cast. Hades. How do I... What the fuck? I don't want to... Sorry. Swearing, right? Jesus. Hades. Greek. Is it Hades who's like the evil underworld? Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, this is like, I know the Disney version movie of it, but if I'm not mistaken, you like learn his origin story and it's like his family was bad or like he got screwed over and somehow got there. And it doesn't justify him being like an evil character, but it gives you it like creates depth, right? Like people are deep, good or bad. There are how they were raised or what has happened to them throughout their life or their moral compass and their genetics. All these things kind of make up how they end up treating other people. Their relationships, their connections make up how they end up treating other people. And I think Dr. Bledsoe is the character in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man who screws over the narrator. And I think like originally people were like, he's the villain. And I'm like, anyone in his spot would have acted, or not anyone, because sometimes there are people that will act good even if it hurts themselves. But you can tell that he's acting out of fear and desperation to uplift himself and his family. And in doing that, he screws over other people. And does that make him good? No, it's like very heartbreaking and bad for the people he's screwing over, but it gives you understanding. Anyways, I'm repeating myself, but I thought the book was really good. And I definitely thought the like message was critiquing society and like the structures that have been put in place to like keep poor people poor, and that makes it hard for them to uplift themselves and to keep, Black people separate. And it touches on, because it was written in the 40s, it touches on, redlining and job, a lot of Black people couldn't even get jobs. And if they could, they had to do a lot of masking. Anyways, as a psych major, I found it very interesting. My best friend, like I said, read it for English. I don't know how I went on that tangent, but it was a good book. It was really long and very like difficult, but it made me feel good that I read it, and I liked my conclusions of it. It made me feel smart. And it was fun to talk about. And yeah, anyways, please give the show a like and subscribe, especially if you're still watching after that whole tangent I just went on. I'm feeling really grateful. When I read books like that, I feel really grateful for my upbringing and for my dad, who just, I think, is like a wonderfully human and moral and like loving and caring and giving person, and someone who would like give the shirt off of his back, and who, you know, he is one of those people that would like not screw over someone else, even if it meant he couldn't uplift himself. Because he is like, does that make sense? Like I like that I have those, that I see the world from a place of like empathy and understanding. And I think, and like caring. And that doesn't mean I always act right. Like I've, like I said, I think everyone has their flaws, but I think when I read books like that, I feel very grateful, you know, that I was raised in the way that I was raised. And that doesn't, that, you know, in some people might look at me and say that that's bad, because maybe I won't be the most successful person ever, but I appreciate my heart and the way that my brain works. And when I read things like that, it kind of reminds me of school, like classroom discussions. I went to community college before I went to UCSB. UCSB was wonderful. It was beautiful, but my classes were like 500 people lecture halls. Where at Cuesta, which was the community college I went to, we got to do a lot of like discussions. And I just really enjoyed like lecture debates and really breaking down the article and the study, and reading this made me think like that. But anyways, I'm officially late to the dinner and I still have to drive there. So I'm ending this. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. That really helps. Commenting really helps. And I'll be going live throughout the week as more things happens. If, you know, updates with Brandon Aiyuk happen, if the 49ers trade for anyone else, I'll be going live. And then, you know, I'll have Tom Jensen on. I'm trying to get, I think I might try to have Grant Cohn on later on this week. And then also, if you guys are interested in having Chase from Chad Sports, I had him on a couple months ago, and it was so fun to talk to him. And I get a lot of good information from watching his streams. So I was going to reach out just to try to bump up and grow this channel a little bit. But yeah, and I might do some more things like this where I go off and talk about non-football things, but I'll try to keep it at the end or separate so that if you're not interested in that, you can leave. But yeah, I love you guys so much. Shout out to all my regulars. Jesse, tell Jesse that I've met up with Jesse a couple times in Florida, and I would love to, just for games and stuff. He lives down there. Hopefully I think everyone knows I'm not trying to blow up and expose where Jesse lives, but Jesse's always been a great friend to me. When I started my YouTube channel, he like literally taught me about Canva, which is how you make thumbnails. Collab with Coach. I love him. Yeah, I love Coach too. I will reach out to all these people, but if you dig me, tell them as well, because then when I send them DMs, maybe they're like, ooh, I don't know about that girl, but other people have told me to collab with her, so maybe I will. So yeah, thank you guys so much. If you haven't, I hate those Sea Dogs. We'll talk about the division maybe in a couple of days once the moves have settled down, but the Seahawks have lost some players. The Rams have added a lot. I think the 49ers are still third in the division, but I wonder if the Rams have passed up the Seahawks. They lost cornerback, their running back, their offensive coordinator. I don't know. Someone else is laughing though. Seahawks could still be great, but it's hard. You win a Super Bowl and people start going after your players. It's hard to keep it up, you know? Anyways, love you guys so much. For all my regulars, thank you so much. And if you're new, like and subscribe. Usually I'll go over the comments more, but like I said, I keep talking and I've just been later and later to dinner. So anyways, love you guys. Stay warm, by the way. Stay warm. Stay cool. It's been warm in the Bay Area. Drink some water. Love you.